and we have seen how arrays are declared, constructed, and initialized, right? And how to actually write a sample program to initialize arrays, and how to retrieve them, and what are the different things which we have. And we also have seen, like, if you actually go beyond the length of or the index, right? If you have 5 values, you are supposed to, the maximum index which you can use for an array will be 4, not beyond that. If you go beyond that, then it will actually give you an error. Okay. So which we have already seen yesterday that it actually gave us a fatal error saying index out of bounds. Right. So same way we have this is how we normally work with arrays. So it can be for any data type. It can be for int, string, right, float. Take any data type as such, or an object, right? Everything you can use as an array type, and all the features which are applied for arrays will be automatically applied to that data type array which you have declared. Fine. Perfect. Now let's move on to the next one, which is the multi-dimensional. So till now, whatever we have seen is a single dimension array, right, where you can actually save items or values of the data type which you have defined, right, over here, where if you define any int, it will allow you to save all its. Same way for strings or floats or anything. Now let's see how we can actually declare multi-dimensional. So take an example of 2 by 2 dimension. Now basically, till now we have defined something called int array of 2. Let's say 2, which means it can actually save 2 values. What does it mean? It contains one row, right? So take it as a row, and it contains 2 columns, right? Let's say column 1 and column 2, right? It will have 2 columns where you can save 2 different values. So both values will be the feature. Same way, if you actually increase the dimension, let's say we are talking about 2 by 2, right? Now let's see how it works. Now here this is 0 and 1, right? Your first column will always be 0, and your second column will always be 1. So this is single dimension 1. So 2 by 2 will be like this. So when you say 2, which means you are actually talking about 2 rows and 2 columns. Right? So here we'll have something like this, where you have 2 rows and then 2 columns. Which means again you have an index for row, index for column. But here we have index only for column, which means number of values which you can save in that array. Right now you have even index for your row, which means when you actually define a 2 by 2, which means your first row will be 0th index row and the second row will be 1. Same way your columns 0th index column and first. Now this is how it actually maps in data. Now how can I declare a 2 by 2 or 2-dimensional array? Is like, we have a data type again, anyways we have to use square braces, and if it is 2 dimension, just put 1 comma, right, which means it takes 2 dimension. Now let's say I'm taking this d is equal to new, let's take int of 2 by 2. Now this is how we declare a 2-dimensional array and construct. And this is what we construct. Now how can we assign values here? Now we know when we say assigning values, which means initializing values, we are done with 2 rules. First rule declaration, second rule construction, and third rule is initialize with some values, right? So if you don't initialize with any value, right, by default, if whatever data type you use, right, a default value will be filled up. If it is a number type, 0 will be filled. If it is a string type, it will be your null I mean, or a blank. Even for a floating, which is again comes under number type, it will actually have a 0 and all, right? So, but when you actually get into initializing, right? Check out this one. Now here you can see, whenever we had a single dimension one, we directly can populate first cell. How can we populate first cell? Let's say this is ARR, which we have seen yesterday, which means we have ARR, right, of 0, which means it will directly assign value to the first cell. But here, so this cell, let's say you want to fill the first cell first, which means what is the position of this cell? The position of this cell is 0th row and 0th column, which means your variable is D, right? Just say D of 0th row, comma 0th column. And when you assign with some value, let's say 5, right? That 5 will be saved. Now this is how we define the toolbar, right? Same way, dimension of, let's say, how to fill this cell. Again, first go with the row and then with the column. 0th row and first column. 0 you have and you have 10. You will get 10. Right? Now how to fill this cell? Let's say this cell is nothing but your first row and your first column, which means D 1, 1. Now obviously you understand this, which is 1 row and 0 column, which is 1, 0. When you say 50, let's say 50. Now this is how the two-dimensional array will be initialized. Right? And also whenever you want to retrieve data, it's again the same. When you want to retrieve the data, then let's say you want to retrieve this data, which is at first row and first column. Then it's simple that you give the first row and first column. Now this is how we normally define two-dimension. Let me show you a simple example in program. So here, let's say I have my long array, right? Let's say I'm taking it as LNG, where I'm going to define long 2 by 2. Right? You can see it takes up your 2 by 2 dimension long type data type array. Right, where you can see here LNG of, when you have 0, 0 is your value, the first cell which you are filling. Now it is like 2 by 2 matrix, right? The maximum possible values of 2 by 2 matrix will be 4, right? Same way, you have LNG of 0th row and first column as 15. First row and 0th column, let's say, right? First and second row. Same way, you have LNG of first column. Right? Now these are the initialized things. Now here again, as we have index 2, I mean the maximum possible values are 2 at row and 2 at a column, right? Which means you will not be able to go ahead, write down like, I want 5th column and some 5th row and 9th column as some value. Don't do that, because this will actually give you a fractal equation. Understand this? Right? You can see index out of bounds of array. Now it also applies for 2-dimension too, right? When you are defining 2-dimension, which means you say there should be only 2 rows filled with two numbers each row, right? But here what we are doing, we are trying to do something which is out of the bounds. So this is not. Same way, if you want to get the data, right? So here let me get LNG. Let's say I want to get this cell, which is first row and first column, right? Now you can see first row and first column is 55. So I can use first row, first column value. So I should get an output of 55. Now you can see the output of first row, first column is 55. So this is how we define our multi-dimensional arrays or the two-dimensional arrays, and you can actually go ahead with the same concept for multi-dimensional. And normally, if you have any multi-dimensional things to save, right, we normally can have other ways to do. But here, yes, we can actually have this this way to save. And we always should make sure that we are following the indices maximum range whatever we are given for number of rows and columns too, because if you go beyond then it will give you a fraction level which will not move to the next level. So this is about arrays which we have, where you can actually work with multiple dimension things. So any questions till now? Now, let me show you one more way how you can actually initialize your array directly. Let's say I have some, let me take an example of float array. Right? It can be single dimension or so here, let me just take FLT is equal to. So what I can do, I can actually define things in braces, flower brackets. So if I define any values in flower bracket, right, it will automatically initialize things. So when I say automatically initialize, which means it is going to add each and every data, right, to FLT variable directly, right? You don't have to initialize it separately. So what it will do is, it will, whenever you declare in this way, it will it will declare a variable and it will automatically initialize and then even construct the variable. Right? So let's say I'm going to use some values here. We just use here. Now you can see whenever you use decimal, right, it will not accept. Why? Because by default decimals are, the decimal values of real numbers are double. So in order to make it float, just suffix with float and it will be. Fine. So let me show you after debugging how it is working. Let me show it up. Now you can see whenever initially I define an array, you can see this is a declaration of array, right? Initially it will be null. That is the reason why we always should follow the rule. First rule is to initialize. I mean declare array. We have declared. Whenever you declare any array, it will be null. And then construct. Until unless you construct, that 5 space or 5 blocks will not be created as such. Right? Now when you go ahead, right now you can see there are 5 different slots being created in array where the default value 0 is saved. Now if you go ahead with assigning values, now I've assigned only one value, right now you can see 20 got initialized. Same way, once you complete your thing, now you can see all the values got initialized. Right? So there are 2 main windows in .NET Editor which you can use, right, for debugging purpose. First one, let's say you want to see this array, what is data, what are all the values you have. You can maybe on Mouzoro itself you can actually get it, as these are few values, right, or this variable is a lighter variable, that's why you can actually use Mouzoro. Or what you can do is select that variable and right click on that, and you will have an option called Quick Watch. Click on Quick Watch. Now here you can see the variable. Go ahead and see. Now you can see all the variables whatever you have and its type. What type of variable is. Now this is your Quick Watch. And the second window is like Add Watch. Right click and say Add Watch. Now Add Watch is nothing but as soon as you can see here. Now as soon as you try to debug, right, it will actually change the value of whenever it gets initialized, it will get changed. Let me show you for this long. So if you want to delete from watch, right click and just say you can delete watch, or it will go. Now there is one more way. If you want to put a watch for this long, either you can right click and click on add watch, or set that variable and drag and drop on this. Right? When you drag and drop now, this will show you a real real-time execution. So when I go ahead, now initially you can see LNG long is null. Now when I go ahead with initialization with two-dimensional array, now you can see my LNG got initialized and you can see 4 different cells got created: 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0 and 1, 1, where each and every value is sorry, what happened is, okay, each and every cell got filled with 0. Why? Because it's a number type. Now initialize each and every cell. Now you can see, just have a look at this window and the debug, whatever I'm doing. When I click on this, now you can see the first value got initialized. Now whenever anything changes, right here, it will show it in red. Change one more thing, you can see 15 got assigned, 34 got assigned, and 53 got assigned. Now this is how. Same way, you can have watch for any object or any variable. Now you can see a referral T is initially null, and you can see, as I said, if you define in this way, right, it will actually declare, construct, and assign or initialize values in one step. Now when I click on it, you can see float got created, and you can see the size got assigned. Size got fixed 4. You can see there are 4 different values, right? And if you want to see the values, now you can see. So this is how your watch, it will be useful for you. Which is your actual watch window or a watch. So this will be easy. You can actually make use of this, and you can create any number of watch. When I click on add watch, it will be added. And if you want to use one more watch window, right, you can actually add anytime you want. Right. So once the program is out of once method comes out, right, now you can see all the variables, right, whatever you have defined will actually go out. Right. Now this is how we use debug and these are few things which we have in Arrays. Right. So any questions on this, on the right, and how to create a variable, use it, what is a method, what is a class, right, how to call a variable and assign something and all, right? So now let us see how to call a method from other method first, right? So let me create a simple CI. Let me call it as show you very quick so that you can understand why do we use methods. So here you have, let me take static void main So whenever you use this code, right, whenever you, I'm sharing this code with you, right, whenever you use, if you want to run arrays, put your static here, and for other classes, wherever the static is set, so that in your project only one class will have static and it will be a trigger class. Right. Okay, so let me create one more method. Let me call static, and let me call void first, because my return type I don't want to return anything, and just say print data. Print data is my method. I'm not using anything, but I just want to print something. So whatever we have done till now, we have done everything in main, right? So let's do something different in a different method, right? So here I'll say console dot write line of, let's say this is my first method call, right? Now here see, I've written on main and I've written print data. Now whenever we had main, right, it always used to get triggered, and whatever code was there inside used to trigger. Now I have one more method. If I run, will it trigger automatically? See, when I run this, right, the console will open and will close automatically. Why? I haven't defined anything in my main. Let's say I have console.readLine, right? because I want to keep my window open. So here you can see that the window which is your console, right, is open, but you can notice that there is nothing in it. And when I say nothing, which means how can I actually print this data, or whatever I've written in this method, right? How to actually call that. So for this, we have to use a method call from one method wherever it gets triggered. Now let's say here I want to print something, which is my print data. Now this is how you call. You'll actually give some method name and then your braces. Now this braces will actually depend on, if you are not demanding any arguments, then you don't have to give. Argument is nothing but you can actually pass the values and do some operation and get data. Right? Now you run this program. Now you can see, as soon as main comes over here, it will go to the next step, it will go to the print data. Whenever it goes to print data, it will go in and then prints it and then comes back, and then it is asking for me to provide something to close. Now if you want to see the debugging of this, I can show you that. Now let me press F5. Now you can see debugging. I'll just say F10 here. Now here I have a method. Now if you want to go into that method, then press F11, or else if you want to to execute it and directly go to next line, then you can press F11. Sorry, F10. Now let me press F11 so that I can go to the method call. Now as I have called this method, it will directly go to the method call. And now you can continue with F10 again. Now as soon as you click on this, initially you can see the window is blank. Now as soon as you click on this and right light, you can see that in your console, right, you will have your method, whatever you have written in method will be written. And then come back. Now your print data method is execution is completed. Now it will go to read line, which means it will ask us to enter something, give some value and enter, so that it will come out. When I enter, you can see it came out to my main method's end. Right, now press F5 and you can see your control window. Now this is how we normally call a method inside a method. Now a bit improvement for this. Let's say I want an argument for this. So let's say I'm giving an argument type, which is for print data, I'm actually demanding to provide an integer value as an argument. Now you can see here, that's the reason why it will give you an immediate error. And it says there is no method which doesn't accept. You can see no method which takes 0 arguments. Print data is something which needs 1 argument at least. Let's pass on some 555 value, and let's print that value here. A. Now this A is nothing but an argument value of type A, and whenever you pass 255 or some data from print data, right, this will be assigned to A. Right? It will be like you have int A is equal to 255. Right? Now this is same as here. Whenever you pass something, it will be assigned to this, and then whenever I use this variable inside my method, then the value will be retained until unless I change. Right, now you can see when I run this, let me remove this debug point. Right, you can see 255 will be printed. I'm just waiting for something. Now this is called as your argument, and you can have any number of arguments. Right. So what I can do, I can actually go ahead with one more argument called string. Let's say B is my second argument. So I'm gonna print even that argument. Right? A. And just say now this plus. Why I'm using this plus and all, you'll understand when we actually go to strings. Don't worry about why actually I'm defining this string and all, right? You'll understand. Now here you can see print data requires 2 arguments. We're giving only 1, which means there is a mismatch of method call. So here you pass on. Now you can see whenever you click on this, right? Whenever you try to call a method, it will give you a complete signature of what is a method and what are the different arguments and different type we have for that method, right? Now here let's say I'm giving some string so that I can actually call them. Now here I'm passing an apple and a number. Now they will be assigned and I'm releasing it. Now when I run this, you can see. Now this is how we pass a argument. Now, what is return type? Now when you say void, right, which means you don't have to return any value from this method. That is the meaning of void. Don't do anything. It's like void, or it's nullified. Don't do anything. Don't return it. But let's say I want to return something from this method and I want to print here or hold here, right? Let me say I want to return an int type. Now immediately see how .NET Editor is fast enough to compile and give solutions. Now I can see it will give you an error. What it says is, now this should return a value, right? Because you are saying it should return integer, but you are not returning anything here. That's the reason why it says return some value. Right? So here what I am going to do here is, I am going to take one more integer, let's say t is equal to, I'll add a with some 100. Right? Now a is my integer which I am getting, and what I am doing, I am just adding 100 and putting it on 8. Now what I'll do, how can I return anything? Use a keyword called return, and then what type you want to return? An int. So you can return either a value directly, like let's say 200, even this is correct, or most of the times you'll be returning a variable, and this variable will do some calculations and some operation to actually get the data and then return the data. Now this is how we return anything. For returning from any method, we will be using return keyword. Now, when we say return, right, which means this print data, whenever I call this method, is getting something for me, right? Obviously. Now, when I say print data returns int, which means it will do some operation based on my inputs and it will give me something. Now, what is it doing? Giving back? It is giving back int, which means I can catch hold of that integer. Right? So here you can see that. Now here what I'll do, how to actually get the value whatever we have assigned is this way. Now I have int, let's say I'm taking some int as p. Now what happens is whatever you return here, right, is here is being saved in p. Now let's print that. So here it actually returns your value, right, which is right, and it is we are actually catching the data into a variable, and we are just printing. We are just curious to know what exactly it is. Right now you can see value returned is something which is 2655. Right, it's 2555. They valued with 100. And you can get it here. So this is how we can actually call a method and get data from that method whatever we have. Okay. Now this is something which is written. Let's move a step ahead. Now here what I'm doing is I'm actually adding in some static value. Right? Let's see how we can actually accept data from user and then add that data in here. Now here, let's see something which we have used, something called typecasting. Right? Now here, how to accept some value from user. Now, if you remember, we were using read line, right? Read line is something whenever you enter any value, right? Whenever you enter any value in your console, right? So this console.read line will actually read that data, right? It will read that data and it will actually give us, it will return as a string. You can see when I mouse over this method, you can see console.readLine is returning a string. Can you see this? Now this console.readLine is nothing but a method defined in a console class. Now where is this console class? Is in system namespace. Now this is something which is already written in .NET and we are using it. That's it. Right? We are actually using this to read something from console. Right? Now let me show you that how to do. Now here what I'll do, I'll take a string. Let me say value is equal to, let me say console dot read line, which means whatever I enter in my console, I'll get it. Now before that, let me write write line, or let me use write. Now what is the difference between write and write line is, when you say write line, it will, you can see till now I was using only write line, right? So why I'm using is, so it will actually print whatever you provide and it will go to the next line. That is your write line. But if you say only write, right, then what happens? It will print this and it will wait. The cursor will be waiting immediate to that line itself. It will not go to the next line. So just say enter value to add. Right? Now we are asking to enter some value. Now you can see as I'm using write, so the cursor will be next to this add itself. And what happens whenever you enter any read line, any input, it will catch in read line and it will give it to the value. Now you can actually apply our previous class, concept. Now here you can see I got a value which is a number, right? And I want to use this number to add with A. Now can I use value directly here? Right? Can I use this value directly? No. Why? Because value is a string type, right? But I can actually add only integers, right? Obviously you can add a number with a number. Yes, you can add a number with string also, that we'll see in our later classes. But you can see here I'm trying to get something and I'm trying to add with my int. So that's the reason why we can actually use int.parse, where whatever value I'm actually getting here, right? So I can read that and convert it to int, and whatever I'm converting here, I'm adding up with A, and the result you can actually keep it in. Let's run this. Now you can see enter a value to add. Let's say I want to add some 1000 to this. Enter it. Now you can see the value written is 3555. We have sent 255 and it actually added with 1000 and it gives us. Now this is your concept of your method call, return type, arguments, right? How you do operations based on your arguments you're passing and all. Okay? So this is about your method call. So any questions in this, guys? You can ping me whenever you have any question, right? So let's move to the next concept, which is again a very important, which is C# operators, or normally take it as operators in .NET, right? Akila is asking something. Can we use convert into int for conversion of string into int? Yes, you can use. I mean, convert into int in the sense, what do you want to use? You want to use as a int brace, right? So let's go ahead with the operators. Now these operators are again tokens or understandable, understandable operators which we can use to do or perform some calculations, or doing some appending task, or like some arithmetic operations or logical operations or relation operations, right? To do all these stuff, we have got some operators in this. So let's see what are the operators which we have. Now let's take up the main division. We have actually divided them into logical separations. The first one is arithmetic operator, right? And the second one is your unary operators. We'll see each and every operator here. The third one you have is your relational operator, and then you have something called you have unary, relational, and logical. Yes, we have a logical operator, and then you have now the first one itself you can think. Oh, that's right. You have something called assignment operator. And then you have, let's say, some miscellaneous operators which we use. Right? So these are, few operators which we, mostly use in our real time. Right? There are so many as such. There are so many, but logically, in real time, we will be using these operators mostly for our development things. Right? So here, let's start with the first one, which is arithmetic operator. Now we have the following operators which we normally call arithmetic operators. You have plus, you have minus, you have multiplication operator, you have division, and you have modulus operator. So this is something which we normally call modulus. Modulus operator. Right. So these are arithmetic operators. So plus is to add two numbers or number types, or appending to strings, right? And your minus is to subtract, and this is your multiplication operator, and this is your division. Okay? So you can do this in two defined data type entities, right? In two defined databases. So let me just create a new project for operators. So let me as so let me take int a is equal to 9 and int b is equal to 10, and let's say here I'm going to do different operations. Let's say I have c. Now first what I'll do a plus b. Now this is my simple arithmetic operator plus I've used to add to numbers. So let me print that console dot write line of result. So here I have a simple program, right, where I'm actually taking two values and I'm doing some operation. Right? So let me run this. So before running, you have to make your project startup. Right click on that and let me make a startup project. Now let's do this. Now you can see result is 10, which is a plus b is your summing up here of your numbers. And you can actually do sum for any number of values. It's not only 2, right? It's a minimum 2, and you can have any number of actual operations. Right? You can actually add a direct number or a variable or a number. You can use this as many values you want to have. Right? Now the next one is subtraction, where you can have minus. You can understand whenever you use an operator, right? It will actually understand what exactly you're doing. So you can see the subtraction is 18. Same way you can have a multiplication, right, where it will actually get multiplied with the other value, right? And you have your division. Now division will actually give you the actual divisible value, where you can see 90 by 10 will give you 9. Now what is modulus? Modulus will actually give you a reminder. So you can see 19 modulus b, which means 19 modulus 10. Now whenever you divide 90 with 10, right, you actually get the result as 0. So that is something which will give you a modulus. You can see the result will give you is 0. Now let me just give some other number here. Let's say let me give some 89, right? Where I want some, reminder to get out. So when I run this, now you can see a reminder is 9. Right? So the logical, after logical division, whatever remainder comes up, which we can't divide further with a 10, it will be that result. That is something which is called modulus. Now these are your arithmetic operators. Right? Now let's go to the next one, which is a unary operator. Now, what is a unary operator? Now here, unary operators, you have a plus plus, you have minus minus, right, and you have not. Now mostly used operators, unary operators are this. You have a plus plus, minus minus, and not. Not is nothing but a not equal to, or in our logical truth tables, right? If you remember, we used to use something called nego, right? Not 1 is equal to 0, if you remember. Or we have not 0 is equal to 1, which means the nego of your value, nego of your logical output. Same as this not is something which is your nego of some flag. Now let's see what is plus plus. Now we normally call this as a unary increment operator, like unary increment. Right? And same way, this is your unary decrement operator, and this is your unary nego operator. Right? So let's see the plus plus one. How can we use that? Now your plus plus is always used to increment a value by 1, right? And your minus minus is used to decrement a value by 1 again. And you can increment only by 1. Now let me take two things. Now even in increment and decrement, right, which we are seeing, increment and decrement, there are two different verticals which we have, which is your post increment or decrement, or your pre-increment or decrement. Now let's see what is post increment. Now post increment is nothing but, let's say I'm using a value and plus plus. Now this is how we use operator. When you use a value and do plus plus, which means this is a post increment. Now how does your post increment work? Is whenever you assign any value, right, it will first assign the value to C and then it will increment the value of A. Now let's print both the values. So let me call value of A. Right? Now what I am doing is I am actually showing you what will be the value of C, what will be the value of A in different situations. Now what I am doing is, here is a post increment, right? So if you can't see this clearly, let me just increase so that you can see it much better, right? So here you have your A++. Now what happens here is, so your A post increment is like first assign and then increment, which means when it assigns a value to C, the value of C will be 89, and then after this statement is executed, your A will be incremented with 1, which means your A will become 90. Let's run this. See. Now you can see the value result is 89, which means your C is 89 and your A becomes 90. So this is called as your post increment. Same way, let's do post decrement. What happens? It will assign the value to C and then it will decrease A by 1. See here, your 89 will be retained and your value of A will become 80. So this is your post increment and post increment. Now what is pre-increment and post? Pre is nothing but before doing any operation, just do plus plus. Before assigning anything, I am taking the variable A and then assigning it to C. This is your pre-increment. Normally call it as a pre-increment or increment. Right? Now what it will do is, it will first increment a value by 1 and then it will assign to C. right? Check it out. Now you can see the value of C is 90. How? First it incremented the value of A and then assigned it to C, which means that your value of A became 90 and then it is assigned to 90 to C. That's why it's 90. Now even your pre-decrement is like first it will decrement your A value by 1 and then it will assign to C. Right? So you can see your C value will become 88 and also your A value. And this is something which is a pre and post increment and decrement using a unary operator. Right? And what is not? So not is something which we can use in this way. Now let's say you have a Boolean value, right? Some B, BLN is equal to, let's say, false. Now let me print it. Now whenever I'm printing, let's say I'm using not BLN. Now what does it mean? I'm trying to print BLN. Normally let's print BLN first and run this. Now you can see when I print BLN, whatever value of BLN flag is there, false, it will show me false. Now this time I'm going to use not, which means nego of my, whenever you say false it is 0, right? Now when I say not 0, which means same as your nego 0, should give you 1, which means it should give you a value called true. Run this and you can see the value that is true. Now this is something which is a not. Now we'll be using this not operator in our if conditions. I'll show you that when we start our control statements, right? Next topic to these operators, I'll actually show you where exactly we are going to use this. So this is your unary operators. Then let's see what is relational operator. So your relational operator is nothing but you have an equal to relational operator, which means you are actually checking whether two values are equal or not. For not equal, you have not equal, you have greater than, you have greater than or equal to, you have less than, you have less than or equal. Now these are your relational operator. Now when we start our if conditions or control statements, I'll actually show you how to use. Now when I say double equal to, which means we are actually checking whether two numbers are equal or not, or two different, it can be numbers or strings, whatever, right? Two values are same or not. Let's see an example of that. So let me, here what I'll do, let me create a new class for this. Let me call it as some operators. So I have to understand. Now here, let me take int a is equal to 10 and we have int b is equal to some 2, right? So now here we have, let's say I want to check whether these two numbers are same or not, right? Then what we'll do, we'll do something called a double equal to b. Now this will give you, here we are actually doing a comparison between two different numbers, right? By checking them as a is equal to b. Now let me print this value. So this will return you a true or false. Now how? Let me take it as a boolean. Let me take a boolean value as result equal to a is equal to b. See here how it works. Now result is equal to, I want, why I am taking boolean variable, because it can say true or false, and which will give you true or false. When I say double equal to, this will give me whether this complete condition is true or false, and it will be saved here. Now let me print the boolean value. Now let me print a result. Result Now let me run this. There is an issue. It says, okay. Can you just look into this issue, guys? So here it says, now this is a good example. Now it says local variable A cannot be declared in the scope because it would give you a different meaning to A, which is already in use. Now you can see we have defined an argument called A. I'm actually using the same variable for my int. Now this is not allowed, right? You can't have two different type of variables with the same name. Now let me make this as A1. Right? Now this is a learning again. Never ever declare two different variables with the same name. Now let me run this. Now you can see here result is false because A is equal to B is not true. That's why it will give you false. Right? Now let me make it not equal to, which is our second operator. Second relational operator is not equal to. I am checking whether A is not equal to B or not, and I am saving it to result. Now you can see A not equal to B is true. Same way, let's check greater. Let's check this. Now here you can see A is greater than B, which means 10 is greater than 20. Is it correct or not? No, it is not correct. So that's the reason why it should give you false. Same way, A greater than or equal to, which means A, which is 10, is it at least greater than or equal to B, which is 20. Now obviously it won't be false, but let us take this as 10. Now when I take it as 10, let me just first see the greater than B. A is greater than B, which means 10 is greater than 10. Is it correct? No, it is not correct. So it will give you a false. Now, when you use A should be greater than or it can be equal to B, then it is true. Then it will give you a true. Right. Same way, A is less than B. Is it correct? Now 10 cannot be less than 10. That's the reason why it will give you a false. Now, do something called A less than or equal to B, right? Where you have 10 equal to or 10 less than or equal to 10, which is right. So this is how we can use something called operators, relational operators, to actually compare different conditions, or sorry, different values. Right. So this is about relational operator. Now let's see what are the logical operators. So logical operators are, you have logical and logical OR. Now, these are the logical operators. If you remember, we normally compare this with AND is A and B and OR is OR. Now in our truth tables, right, whenever we use truth tables, we normally say 1 and 0 or in that way. So same applies even here, right, which is our logical operators. Now let's see how we can actually apply them. Now before that, now it's very important to understand a logical truth table, which is, I hope you remember, let's say we have two different condition sets, which is A and B, which will give you two different results, whether the condition is true or false. Or to take a logical truth table, let's take it as A, B, where I'm going to do A and B, which means I'm going to apply AND operation here. So my A, let's say, is 1 and B is also 1. Now 1 stands for true, because you can actually apply logical AND or NOR between two different conditional outputs, which is either can be true or false. Let's say true is your 1 and your false is your 0. We are reading a truth table. Now AND operation is something where it says, when I say AND, which means my left hand side and right hand side conditions should be true. Then only I'll give an output of true. Now here you can see your A condition So here in your AND, your left hand side condition is true and your right hand side condition is true, which means the output will be 1, which is, let's say 1, which is true. Same way, let's say your A condition was, I'll show you an example, don't worry about it. Let's say your A condition was true and B condition was false. If any one condition fails, right, then your AND operation will fail. Same way, your first condition fails and your second condition, let's say, got passed. Even then, you have AND operator. And if your both the condition fails, obviously. Now this is your truth table. You can replace 1 with truths, 0 with false. Right? So now here the summary is for AND condition, right? Everything should be true. If at least one fails, your complete logical condition set will be failed. Let's see how we can actually. Now whenever I say A and B here, right? This is something which is same as, let's say this complete condition what I'm watching at is A, let's say A. And I'll take one more conditional thing which is like A, let's say, is equal to some B. Now this is something which is my complete capital B, and I'm applying something called AND operator. Now this is how I can apply, where I'm using one condition and other condition and applying AND operator in between these two, which means A less than or equal to B should be true and A is equal to B also should be true in order to return true. If any one of the condition fails, then your result will be false. Now you can see here A less than or equal to B is true because 10 less than or equal to 10 is correct, and your A is equal to B is also correct. Now you should get a result called true. Now this is called as a logical AND. Same way you can extend this to any number of conditions. I can have AND again, and I'll say A is greater than some 50. Right? I can have this, and I can say and let's say B is less than 50. Right? Now here you can see this is true and this is true, and when it comes to A greater than 50, this fails. In a complete AND conditions, if one fails, what happens? Right? It doesn't matter if there are all truths. One fail will actually result you in a complete failure of this condition. So when you run this, you can see a false. That is your logical AND. And what is your logical OR? Now it is same. Let me just copy this truth table for OR. Let's say I want OR. Let's remove all these outputs and we'll draw outputs. Now, OR, by the name itself, it says OR, which means either this or that. If any one of them is true, the output will be true. Now here one or 1 will give you 1 because at least 1 is true. That's why it will give you 1. Now 1 or 0 again will give you 1 because your A condition is, and 0 and 1 will give you again 1 because your B is true, and 0 and 0 will give you 0 because neither of them is true, which means in your OR condition, if any one condition is true, then that's it. You don't have to go with the other conditions, it will give you that. Let's check this here. So let me use this again. Let me make it as OR result. Right? I'm just taking the results, and let me just take first two conditions. Let's say here I have A is equal to B and I have A greater than B, right? Or greater than this, which means this is true and this is true, and I'm using OR condition. OR is nothing but two pipe symbols, right? OR symbol is like two pipes, right? Now let me print OR result rather than result. Now you can see the output is true because at least one is true. Let me just extend this to more conditions. Now let me take all these. Now here b less than 50 is true, a greater than 50 is like false, right? And let me make it as b as some 70. Your a equal to b will fail, right? Your a greater than b will fail. Your a greater than 50 also will fail, right? And your b less than 50 also will fail, which means everything will fail. Now when I run this, now you can see, now we get false. Now, let's say I'm saying a is not equal to b, which means among all, only one condition is true. Then what happens? Your compilation or execution will stop here, right? Because you are using OR operator across the conditions and you got one true. That's it. It won't even check other conditions because for OR, one true, one condition is correct, then it will give you. Now this is something which is a logical OR and your logical AND. So in your logical AND, not at least, both should be, your left and right hand side conditions should be true. Our condition should be successful, then it will give you true. In OR, at least one should be true so that to get your output as true. These are the logical operators which we have. Right? So this is about operators which we have, and the remaining operators, which is assignment operator and some miscellaneous operator, will check it out in our tomorrow's class. Right? So any questions till now, guys?